Everyone remembers the fast cars, the screeching tires, the muscle-bound engines, the glamorous chase scenes that seem to define Hollywood action. But behind the smoke and shattered glass, there's another kind of hero that rarely gets the spotlight: the truck. These machines weren't just background props. They pulled heroes out of chaos, smashed through impossible obstacles, and sometimes they stole the entire movie. Because while sports cars get the glory, it's the trucks and pickups that carried the weight, literally. They weren't polished showroom queens. They were beat up, mud-splattered, and sometimes even weaponized beasts that became just as iconic as the actors behind the wheel. Today, we're diving into 10 of the best movie trucks and pickups to ever come out of Hollywood. From tornado-chasing Dodges to monster trucks that redefined American culture, these are the machines that proved raw power and grit could outshine speed and style any day. In the mid-90s, Dodge completely changed the game with the second-generation Ram, bold, oversized, and carrying a V10 that rumbled like thunder. It wasn't just a truck, it was a statement. So iconic, in fact, that Hollywood didn't just feature it, they made it a star. In the 1996 disaster blockbuster Twister, Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton lead a ragtag team of storm chasers, and their ultimate weapon wasn't radar or satellites, it was a Dodge Ram 2500. This wasn't just a background vehicle, it was the hero truck that hauled Dorothy, the storm-tracking capsule, straight into the path of a tornado. Of course, Hollywood magic meant multiple Rams were used. A mix of 1,500 and 2,500 stunt trucks were smashed, tossed, and beaten senseless by wind machines and debris. And while the CGI twisters haven't aged well, the sight of the Ram muscling through chaos made it unforgettable. It was more than a truck, it became a symbol of grit and determination. And in a movie filled with flying cows and collapsing barns, the Ram 2500 might just have been the most believable star of all. But if a storm-chasing Dodge Ram was unforgettable, the next truck was pure 80s adrenaline, dodging tank fire in a fight for survival. The year was 1984, and Hollywood imagined the unthinkable: Soviet paratroopers dropping out of the sky, invading small-town America. The movie Red Dawn, the heroes, a group of high school kids led by Patrick Swayze, and their ride into guerrilla warfare, a lifted 1977 Chevrolet K10 stepside. This wasn't just a truck, it was a rolling symbol of defiance. In one of the movie's wildest scenes, Swayze floors the K10 straight through a Soviet roadblock, dodging tank fire as chaos erupts all around. Moments later, an American helicopter swoops in to blast the enemy wide open, sealing the Chevy's role in one of the most over-the-top escape sequences of the decade. Sure, the plot stretched believability to the limit, but the sight of that rugged K10 climbing, charging, and clawing its way through enemy fire cemented its place in movie history. It wasn't about realism, it was about raw, 80s-style power fantasy. And in that world, a Chevy pickup could take on an army. But while the K10 gave us pure action adrenaline, the next truck wasn't just a star, it was a dream machine that shaped a generation's idea of cool. Most people remember Back to the Future for the DeLorean, but for car lovers, there was another star: Marty McFly's Dream Ride, a black 1985 Toyota SR5 pickup. When we first see it, it's sitting in a dealership window, lifted, with roll bars, KC lights, and everything a teenage Marty could ever want. It wasn't just a truck, it was freedom. It was the symbol of escaping small-town boredom and driving into the life you dreamed about. And Hollywood made sure that fantasy hit hard. By the end of the first film, Marty actually has it parked in his driveway, a reward for his wild time travel adventure. But it didn't stop there. And the sequels, that same Toyota became the centerpiece of Marty's biggest temptation, a drag race that could have destroyed his entire future. One bad decision behind the wheel almost rewrote his life forever. This wasn't just product placement. It was the first time a Japanese pickup became a legitimate cool car in an American blockbuster. Suddenly, it wasn't just Mustangs or Camaros, it was a Toyota pickup that every kid wanted. But while Marty's Toyota captured dreams, the next truck brought nightmares to life, introducing America to a monster that would stomp its way into history. Before monster trucks became a stadium-filling phenomenon, before they were household names, there was Bigfoot 1, and Hollywood gave it its first big break in the most unlikely place. A forgotten 1981 movie based on a country song, Take This Job and Shove It. On paper, the film wasn't exactly blockbuster material, but in one scene, everything changed. Bigfoot 1, a heavily modified 1970s Ford F-250 lifted high on 48-inch mud tires, lined up against a disguised version of its rival, USA 1. What followed was the very first glimpse many Americans ever had of the monster truck showdown. The truck itself was built by Bob Chandler, a man who had no idea he was about to create a cultural icon. That single on-screen race introduced Bigfoot to millions, and suddenly monster trucks weren't just local oddities, they were part of American pop culture. It was a strange beginning for a legend, buried inside a film few people remember. But for gearheads and kids watching in awe, it was a defining moment. The age of monster trucks had officially begun, and Hollywood wasn't done with Bigfoot yet, because years later, another monster pickup would smash through a car dealership in one of the most outrageous scenes of the 80s. But first, let's talk about a GMC that pulled off something no truck had ever done before. Some trucks haul trailers, others haul groceries. But in Lethal Weapon 2, Mel Gibson's GMC Sierra 3500 dually hauled an entire house. That's right, one of the wildest moments in the film comes when Riggs, Gibson's burned-out cop character, hooks up his big, four-door Sierra to a drug dealer's stilted mansion and rips it right off its foundations. Wood snaps, glass shatters, and the whole structure comes crashing down the hillside, all thanks to a working man's pickup. The Sierra wasn't flashy, but that's what made it perfect. In an era when trucks weren't yet considered cool, Hollywood showed one as a powerful, unstoppable force. It was a nod to the idea that real toughness doesn't need polish. And while most fans remember the gunfights, the explosions, or Gibson's wild energy, for truck lovers, this scene was unforgettable. It proved a pickup could do something no sports car ever could, bring down a house, literally. But when the world itself was collapsing in fire and ash, Hollywood needed something even tougher, and that's when a Chevrolet Suburban stole the spotlight in a race against a volcano. When you're racing against a volcano, you don't want style, you want survival. And in 1997's disaster thriller Dante's Peak, Pierce Brosnan's weapon of choice wasn't a flashy sports car, but a rugged 1987 Chevrolet Suburban. This wasn't just any Suburban either. Hollywood outfitted it with everything a volcanologist could dream of: oversized all-terrain tires, a winch, roof rack, brush guard, CB radio, floodlights, and even a snorkel. It looked like it had rolled straight out of an off-road magazine, and on screen, it proved every bit as capable as it looked. In one of the movie's most unforgettable moments, Brosnan drives the Suburban into a raging river, fording, floating, and somehow surviving long enough to keep his rescue mission alive. It wasn't realistic, but it was pure movie magic. The Suburban became more than a vehicle. It was the lifeline that kept the characters moving as the world around them collapsed in fire, ash, and molten rock. And for audiences, it cemented the Suburban's image as one of the ultimate survival trucks. But as tough as the Suburban was, the next truck went head-to-head with something even stranger than a volcano: underground monsters that could swallow a vehicle whole. By the early 90s, Hollywood had given us natural disasters and foreign invasions. But Tremors took the danger underground, with giant, worm-like monsters called graboids. And in the middle of this chaos, a battered old 1963 Jeep Gladiator. This wasn't a shiny, showroom pickup, it was sun-bleached, dust-worn, and loaded with work gear rattling around in the back. The kind of truck that had already lived a hard life before the cameras ever rolled. And that made it perfect for a movie set in a desert town under siege. In one of the film's most iconic moments, the Gladiator helps Kevin Bacon and his crew fight back against the graboids. At one point, the beast latches onto the truck's rear axle, only to have its tongue ripped clean off as the Gladiator roars forward. Suddenly, this forgotten workhorse wasn't just a prop, it was a weapon of survival. The Gladiator became a symbol of resilience. It reminded audiences that sometimes the toughest trucks aren't the newest or flashiest, they're the ones that keep going long after they should have fallen apart. But while the Gladiator was a gritty survivor, Hollywood also gave us one of the most insane trucks ever built, a futuristic beast armed to the teeth and ready for war. By 1989, buddy cop movies were everywhere. But Tango and Cash decided to go bigger, louder, and crazier than the rest, and that included giving its heroes a truck straight out of a fever dream. Dubbed the RV from Hell, this monstrous rig looked like something ripped from a comic book. Flamethrowers, rocket launchers, a fully functional Gatling gun, it was less pickup, more war machine. And yet, beneath all that armor and fiberglass, it was built on a very real GMC 3500 platform. Hollywood even went as far as mounting a massive 454 cubic inch V8 midship, perfectly balanced for the film's over-the-top jump stunts. The result, a rolling fortress that Stallone and Kurt Russell drove headlong into a gauntlet of enemy fire, explosions, and absurdity. It was ridiculous, impractical, and totally unforgettable. The RV from Hell wasn't about realism. It was about Hollywood turning a truck into pure spectacle, a fantasy machine built to thrill audiences and out to every other buddy cop climax of the decade. But Hollywood still wasn't done with monster trucks. Because before the 80s closed, another Bigfoot build would crash onto the screen, this time with a $500,000 stunt that left Jaws on the floor. If the first Bigfoot movie appearance introduced America to monster trucks, then Roadhouse proved Hollywood was willing to spend big money to show them off. By 1989, Bigfoot was already a legend, and the producers wanted something even wilder. Enter Bigfoot 7. Built specifically for the film, this monster wasn't just a background stunt vehicle, it was the centerpiece of one of the most outrageous scenes in Roadhouse. A small-town crime boss, eager to flex his power, drives Bigfoot 7 straight through a brand new car dealership, flattening shiny sedans like they were soda cans. And the price tag for that one moment, $500,000. On screen, it was pure chaos. Patrick Swayze, making his second truck-related appearance on this list, watches as the monster machine crushes its way through the showroom. Off-screen, it was a reminder of how much Bigfoot had grown into an entertainment empire. Today, Bigfoot 7 still exists, though it's been renamed Big Fun and sits on tires nearly 10 feet tall in Orlando. But for movie fans, its most unforgettable role will always be that wild, destructive rampage in Roadhouse. And while monster trucks brought shock value, the final truck on our list did something different, proving that even a humble pickup steals the spotlight in a high-speed street chase. Most movie trucks get thrown into off-road chaos, storms, explosions, even monsters. But in 1978's The Driver, a pickup found itself in a very different role, the middle of a sleek high-speed street chase. The film follows Ryan O'Neal as a professional getaway driver, and while muscle cars usually dominate that kind of movie, here he takes the wheel of a bright red 1970 for Chevrolet C10 stepside. With a 450 for big block under the hood, this truck wasn't just for show, it had the muscle to outrun one of Hollywood's favorite chase machines, a Pontiac Trans Am. What made the scene stand out wasn't just the stunt driving, but the novelty of it. At a time when trucks weren't seen as cool in action movies, the C10 carved its own place in cinema history. No special gadgets, no over-the-top destruction, just raw skill, roaring power, and the kind of tension that keeps audiences glued to the screen. It proved that a truck didn't need a monster lift kit or a volcano to make an impact. Sometimes, all it takes is a skilled driver, an empty city street, and a pickup tough enough to go head-to-head with Hollywood's best chase cars. And when the credits rolled, one thing was clear: trucks could do more than survive chaos. They could own the spotlight. For decades, trucks have been more than just background vehicles in Hollywood. They've been tornado chasers, war machines, monster-sized wrecking balls, and even dream rides that shaped an entire generation's idea of cool. Unlike the polished sports cars that often hog the spotlight, these trucks carried the story on their backs, literally dragging houses, crushing villains, and outrunning disasters. From the Dodge Ram muscling through twister storms to Monty McFly's Toyota SR5, from Bigfoot's thunderous debut to the humble Chevrolet C10 proving its worth on city streets, each of these machines showed us that trucks could be just as iconic, just as thrilling, and just as unforgettable as any Ferrari or Mustang. The truth is, Hollywood may love fast cars, but it's the trucks that gave us grit. They were the underdogs, the unlikely heroes, and sometimes the loudest statement a director could make. So the next time you're watching an action movie, don't just focus on the sleek sports cars. Keep your eyes on the trucks, because chances are, the real star of the show isn't the one crossing the finish line, but the one tearing through everything that gets in its way.